It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Good morning. The second Friday of April. I'm Jeff Parles, Alex White. Alongside, we're happy to be with you as always. A lot going on. The final weekend of the NBA's regular season gets going tonight. The NHL, a little under a week to go in the regular season now. Their playoffs start a week from tomorrow. Major League Baseball, full Friday card. We'll have Dan Szymborski to break down what he's seen through the first 2.5 weeks of the Major League Baseball season. And, of course, something called the Masters going on right now.
Oh, yeah, Masters. We'll be watching that all day today and Saturday and Sunday, of course. But it's been a good tournament so far. I'm looking forward to seeing if Tiger makes the cut today. That is what I am most interested in. But also some big news yesterday that we have to get into. But
we'll get to that in a second. I just want to update everyone on the leaderboard over at Augusta from Masters.com, as you can get it. Max Homa currently tied with Bryson DeChambeau at 7 under par. DeChambeau is not teed off yet in the second round. Homa, one of the rare players yesterday, it was 2 shots worse going in the afternoon. Two full shots worse if you went in the afternoon grouping yesterday. And carrying that over to this morning, you saw some players totally eject. Brian Harman with a 47, the Open champion of the Golfer of the Year last year with a 47 on the back 9. So there was a lot of ugliness for people that played a little bit yesterday and then had to come back out this morning. Homa, not one of those, who was tied with DeChambeau. Scheffler at 6 under. Cam Young right now at 5 under by himself. And then Moore rounds out the top 5 at 4 under. A few guys at 3 under, including Victor Hovland right there. Or excuse me, that's Rasmus Højgaard, I should say, at 3 under par right now, Alex.
So far, both of us looking pretty good. I think we both have a couple outright winners tied in 10th or better, which we know in the last 19 years to win the Masters, they were tied at 10th or better after the first round. So still some guys finishing up the first round, as you mentioned. Max Homa, he looked fantastic yesterday, very consistent. I checked his odds. I put a little bit on 20-1 outright. I probably should have done a little bit more. I was curious to see how he finished that first round. Now it might be too late. Also, thinking about it now, I probably should have just went with top 10 because Scotty Scheffler looks fantastic as well. Now he is like, I don't know, plus 125 to win it all, and no bogeys yesterday for his first round here at the Masters. So a lot more action to go, though, as you mentioned.
Yeah, look, I'm pleased that Corey Connors is a 2 under, T10 right now. Finau T15 at 1 under. All right, fine. Siwoo Kim, bad bet, but look, that's going to happen when you have multiple bets. But right now, it is going to be very hard if Scotty Scheffler putts well, and this is really always the case with Scotty. He putted pretty well yesterday. If he does, it's going to be a very difficult uphill climb for anyone to beat Scheffler. DeChambeau, I expect to come back to the pack. If you have matchups available at reasonable prices against DeChambeau today, I would fade. That would be the way that I would look at for second-round matchups. But right now, it feels like Scotty's tournament when it's all said and done. Again, a lot of golf to be played. One bad round for Scheffler, could obviously could really put a dent into his case for a second green jacket here. But it feels like his tournament to lose. And, of course, the betting market's saying that. Scheffler was already for a non-Tiger favorite, absurdly short to come into this tournament, already plus 140, plus 150 out there right now to win this tournament.
Very curious to see how Jon Rahm does today. Watching his interview at the end of round 1, you could tell he was very disappointed. I think he finished even yesterday, but looking back to last year, double bogeyed on the very first hole and then went on to win it. And he even said he kind of realized, okay, I need to get it together. We're at the Masters. And I got that same impression yesterday after the first round. So I really think we'll see a big improvement from him too. So look out for Jon Rahm today.
Rahm won over yesterday along with the U.S. Open champion from a year ago, Wyndham Clark, who I thought looked pretty solid, and then had the 7 on 15 that really wrecked his afternoon yesterday, this morning, I should say. He was one of the carryovers. But again, the big story of this tournament so far is that the afternoon groupings were 2 full shots worse on average than the morning grouping. So we talk about this going into the tournament. Barry Phillips in the Masters preview brought this up as well. It does matter if the weather's an issue. It does matter what those Thursday, Friday tee times are. And look, other than Max Homa, really, the people who teed off in the afternoon yesterday and had to bleed into today for round 1 have had a rough go of it so far in this tournament for the most part.
How has Tiger done this morning? I just got
Tiger
notifications.
Woods right now is currently 1 over for the tournament. He is even par on this round. He actually got it to 1 under on 3 and then bogeyed 2 straight until getting a shot back on number 6. Got a 2 on the par 3/6. And right now, again, curious to see where that cut line ends up landing. Still too early to project on that.
Agreed. I was curious that yesterday as well because it seemed like it would be about even, which is typical, right?
No, it'll probably be higher than that. It's 55 and ties get through to the weekend. So probably 2 over.
2 over. Okay.
Let's see how today plays before we make any projections.
Well, it was impressive, right? Even 7 under yesterday with the weather and the conditions, they did shoot relatively well. As you've mentioned, the later group, not so much. But early on, I was very impressed throughout the day.
Before we get into other things going on today, where, again, full baseball card, the NBA's fine. There are some, going through it this morning before the show, there are some gigantic NBA games today.
Yes,
in the Eastern Conference especially, where right now 4 through 7 is very much up for grabs in the Eastern Conference. We'll get to those 2 games where right now number 5 plays number 7 tonight and number 4 plays number 6, where we could have some changing in the standings, including Philadelphia with getting Joel Embiid back, really getting back into the mix in the Eastern Conference. The biggest non-betting news, and I think we can turn this into betting news though, for early numbers that are up for next year's national championship in college hoops. Mark Pope, BYU's head coach, former Wildcat, was on the championship team in '96, and was on the 97 team that fell short to Arizona as well. He's the man in Lexington. A little bit of a shocker, really, not a little bit surprised. Very surprised he was that high on the list.
Right.
Of course, the number 1 choice seemed to be Scott Drew. He turned it down. Danny Hurley was a pipe dream. That was never happening. There are arguments to be made that Connecticut might even be a better basketball job than Kentucky at the moment. And Kentucky ends up with Mark Pope, where Pope's history has been as a coach. Historically speaking, if you've watched the show this year, you know my thoughts on BYU. I thought the statistics were wrong on them. They end up flaming out in round 1 of the NCAA tournament to a Duquesne team they had no business losing to. Mark Pope, of course, has been at Utah Valley, BYU. He's never won a tournament game. He's under 500 in postseason tournaments when you put together the CIT, CBI, NIT, NCAA tournament. He's 500 in conference tournaments as well. This is a very hard sell for that Kentucky fan base, which we know is ravenous, one of the biggest, baddest ones out there for a fan base. I don't know how this works, Alex. Again, it's hard to project. It seems to be that people that are around this really like Mark Pope, the person. But if you're looking early numbers and trying to pick off some early numbers to win the national championship next year, Kentucky in most books is sitting that have the numbers out 20-1 or 25-1. No. Can't do that. You definitely cannot even think about touching that, because you would anticipate now exodus of talent. Maybe Reed Sheppard stays because his father played with Mark Pope at Kentucky. Maybe that keeps Reed Sheppard around. I think Reed Sheppard should go to the NBA. He's going to be a top 5 pick in this year's draft if he goes. But that is one way to turn it into betting, where you just, it's hard to bet futures so early in college basketball because of the portal, but you definitely can't bet Kentucky at 20-1. No way.
Especially because a lot of times people were betting on Kentucky because Calipari had so much talent there that they could just get hot. But now you lose Calipari, who is arguably one of the best recruiters, and fall to Mark Pope. Why do you think they did this so quickly and rushed it? Because weren't there rumors of Donovan even from the NBA?
I think so. The Billy Donovan thing's the interesting one. The Bulls, of course, are the 9th seed in the Eastern Conference. They could legitimately, if they pulled an upset against whoever the 8th seed, the 7-8 loser ends up being, they would be in the playoffs. That'd be an extra 2 weeks. I think just more so with anything for Billy Donovan. I never bought that from his perspective.
Right.
Where he's been in the NBA almost a decade now. Oh, the college game, very, very different.
Very different.
From when he was there last. We've seen all these older the old guard is gone. Like Jay Wright, retired. Mike Krzyzewski, of course, gone. Roy Williams, gone. Jim Boeheim, gone. All these old guard guys are just not hanging around for the most part in this new transfer portal, NIL day and age in college hoops. And again, it kind of makes what Connecticut did so special, going back to back. It's hard enough in any era, but this era, it's even more ridiculous, especially replacing 4 starters from last year's title team. Hey, look, it's Kentucky. They'll still be able to get some players, but again, it's not a slam dunk. We've seen hires in the past go very wrong here. Billy Gillispie, of course, didn't even make it 2 seasons at Kentucky. I'm not saying Mark Pope is Billy Gillispie. He seems to be a much better character human being than Billy G was at the time, but it's a hard sell. If I'm Mitch Barnard, this is a very tough sell to that fan base, especially when Calipari not only leaves, even though it seemed like the fan base wanted him gone.
Right.
He goes to Arkansas, and now you're going to see all those guys who are going to go to Lexington in red instead of blue.
It does look like John Calipari is going to come out on the right side here, because
maybe
now it falls to Mark Pope, and people will actually appreciate him again and what he did do at Kentucky. But we'll see what happens. A long ways to go before college basketball, but it is getting very interesting. Yeah,
BYU, it'll be interesting to see what direction they go. I thought Mark Madsen was the obvious candidate. He's already shut that down. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. Again, Big 12 job.
Right.
That is a very good job. And the Big 12, remember, Alex, we now have math problems, and really big math problems in college athletics, because the Big 12 will have 16. The Big 10 is 18. The Pac-12 has 2. So we're going to have a lot of interesting math-related questions moving forward. But BYU is an interesting job. Great home court there in Provo.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there is with obviously how baked in the Mormon religion is to that school. There are maybe some guys that may not want to go to BYU instead, going maybe to other schools. But I would say it's a good job. Absolutely at this point for BYU.
Great fan base.
Yeah. Again, great home court.
Yep.
There in Provo. Will be interesting to see what direction they end up going after this. All right. I want to go to the NBA first, Alex. I want to go there.
Yes.
Because I want to get these 2 big games, and I actually, you know how rare it is for me to fire an NBA play?
Yes.
I think I'm going to go with one here today. I want to go to Orlando first, though.
Okay.
I want to go to Orlando and Philadelphia. The winner of this game, right now in the standings in the Eastern Conference, if you look at it, 1 through 3, Boston's good. They're the 1. They've had that clinch for weeks. Milwaukee's 1 game clear of the Knicks with the tiebreaker. So it's going to be the Bucks if they win 1 more game, getting the 2 seed. The Knicks are a game clear with the tiebreaker on Cleveland. They just need to beat Brooklyn tonight, and they're good. They're in the 3 hole. They don't have to worry about it. They could realistically they have an extra game left. They have 3 left. Excuse me, 2 left. They play the Nets and the Bulls back-to-back at home at MSG. I would anticipate that the Knicks would probably sit a bunch of their guys on Sunday,
right,
if things are wrapped up. But this is where this gets interesting. And Indiana and Cleveland is an interesting one tonight because of it. The Cavs, who have not played well over the last month, they're 4-6 in their last 10. They finally got off the schneid with a win against Memphis the other day. Lowly Grizzlies. They're in the 4 slot. Cleveland, of course, a year ago was in the 4 slot. In the East, they lose to the Knicks in 5 pretty quickly in that first round series. They get Indiana tonight. Now, we were going through tiebreakers before.
Yes.
And Indiana and the Cavs have played 3 times this year, and it's 2-1 Cleveland. If Cleveland wins tonight, they pretty much lock themselves in to that 4 seed. They would have the tiebreaker on Indiana. They would have a 1-game lead on Orlando, but Orlando plays Philly tonight, so that could very easily go to 2, and that would be that with Cleveland. If Indiana wins, we have to do a little more research to double check our math. Based off of some tiebreakers down the board, I still had it going to Cleveland, but I have to double check that one last time. So it still could be tough for Indiana. I would lean to the Cavs here tonight, though. This would be a lean to Cleveland at home. I just think when all is said and done, Donovan Mitchell is still the best player on the floor in this game. I know that some would argue with me on this point with how good Tyrese Halliburton has been this year. But I still think this goes through Mitchell, and I still like Cleveland to win this game tonight as a short favorite.
See, and I was almost looking the other way at both of these games. I think there's got to be value in taking the points here with the importance of these games, both for the Pacers and even Orlando. And I know they haven't been playing great either, but you're right. I mean, the Cavs won the last 2 games that they played against the Pacers, but the first matchup they played, Pacers won 125-113, covered easily there. And that game went over. But so, yeah, I think it'll be a great game. 2.5's not much to get, especially on the road here. But I would lean to the dog in both of these important games.
I want to get to that Orlando-Philly while we're on this, too. It's 7.5, Alex, with Philly favored at home at Wells Fargo. Since Joel Embiid has come back, the Sixers haven't lost. And you look at numbers here in the Eastern Conference, Philly's number, I thought, was already short to begin with if you wanted an Eastern Conference future. But I do have one caveat with this now. If Philly gets to the 6 and avoids the play-in games, with a win tonight, by the way, they would move into a tie with Orlando, and they have the tiebreaker already on Orlando. If they win tonight, they will just add to that tiebreak win as they already had. There would be a season sweep by Philadelphia. They would move into a tie with Orlando, which would be good to move them up. If Indiana loses tonight, which would put it into a 3-way tie, the initial math that I had Indiana falling to the 7. But look, when this is all said and done, this is a Philly team. If they end up at the 6 slot, Alex, they end up in the 6 slot, don't have to play a playing game, end up with the Knicks in round 1. I think Philadelphia would probably be a small favorite in that series with Embiid back against the Knicks. There is some credence, if you think Philly can get out of the play-in scenario, to maybe taking a bite of Philly. Not a lot of numbers better than about 12-1, 15-1 out there. That's at a high end, mostly 10-1s out there. I think I'd consider that with the way that the Bucks may not have Giannis in this postseason. The Sixers match up well at the Knicks. All pressure's on Boston.
Yeah.
I mean, Boston's minus almost $2 at some shops right now to win the East, and even over $2 at some shops.
I'm with you. I definitely think there's some value there grabbing a little bit with the Sixers. And to your credit, you've been saying that all year, especially if Embiid was coming back here. And whether or not Giannis comes back, I mean, we can't really trust the Bucks at this time. They've been so inconsistent. Their defense has struggled. And, a lot of pressure on Boston there. So I would look at the Sixers and making a run. We know how tough they are with Embiid.
It's an really interesting go of it down the stretch here with Philadelphia, who, again, you're just at a point now where you have the reigning MVP healthy again. You had been waiting for this. It was even a question when the Sixers were in the 8. Like, is it even worth bringing Joel Embiid back?
Right.
All right. They win one series. They win a playing game, get to a 7. Milwaukee is, again, still more talented. If they got the 8, good luck in round 1 against Boston. But I think there's a reasonable argument now that Joel Embiid is back. Joel Embiid looks healthy. Tyrese Maxey also looks healthy as well.
Yes.
And again, I'm not sure if the Sixers do beat Boston in a prospective 7-game series if they play each other. They could lose to the Knicks in round 1. That wouldn't be shocking.
Yeah.
But when it's all said and done, I think this is worth a flyer if the price is right on Philadelphia here.
And I do think Tyrese Maxey really helps Embiid here.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
different than his connection with Harden or other players we've seen him play with. But you made up a great point that they haven't lost since Embiid came back. They also have covered every number. So I'm glad that you pointed that out, because what I just said earlier and taking a flyer on Orlando and the points here tonight, because it is such an important game. I mean, look out for that and how well Philadelphia is playing. This team has been a great covering machine all year long, and so is Orlando, but I mean, they've slipped up as of late. But the Sixers this year, as a favorite, 31-17. So they've been very
great
good.
As a favorite, yeah.
Yeah.
Orlando, just the way that they've been playing this week, again, opportunities for the Magic to even get to the 3 seed. And, all right, they beat the Bulls within the last week. They lost inexplicably in Charlotte. Horrible, horrible loss.
As a 12-point favorite.
Yeah, it's a horrible loss. They lose in Houston in a game they really were not overly competitive in. They got it back to 6 in the fourth quarter, but then Houston pushed it right back up to win by double digits. And then against Milwaukee with no Giannis, I lose by 18. Lose by 18 points. It just... Again, I don't like people with these young teams that haven't been in this circumstance before will sometimes either go one of two ways. They'll either overrate them or they'll give them absolutely no chance to do anything. Orlando at this point, like if you fall into the playoffs, play-in spot, all right, you get the home game against Miami, 7-8. Do you think you will know anyone that's on Orlando in that game? Miami probably be a small favorite in that game on the road even. In Orlando, not like there's a big home court in Orlando anymore. Not really going back to the 90s was the last time there was a real home court in Orlando. But, I mean, for the Magic, this feels like a total missed opportunity if you can't find a way to just get into the playoffs and avoid the play-in game.
Well, especially going against the Miami Heat, and we know how good they are when it comes to playoffs and postseason. So it'll be a very tough one.
Well, remember, Miami did change the course of NBA history last year. Home game against Atlanta in the 7-8, lose that game,
right.
End up in the 8-hole, and then, of course, make that run to the finals as an 8 seed. Totally changed the course of the entire history of the league, at least the Eastern Conference last year.
Yes.
It made it easier for Denver, but hey, thus is life in the association at times. On the Western Conference side, there's not as many eye-popping, hey, this could impact both the play-in and the playoff scenario. Sacramento Phoenix is more of in the camp at this point of impacting the play-in scenario. Phoenix still can catch New Orleans. If they end up in a tie, Phoenix would get the 6 over New Orleans. Sacramento, after losing last night to those Pelicans, is locked into the play-in game. Phoenix has had a very weird week, Alex. They were down by 37 in the second quarter earlier in the week against the Clippers in a game they ended up losing by 13. Then the following night on Wednesday, they played essentially the G League Clippers, were losing in the second half, ended up winning by 16, covering the number, which was a heck of a cover, but still struggled a lot more than they should have. Tonight, they play Sacramento on the road in the capital of California. I'm just curious on the Kings' motivation here, where I know it may seem weird because there's a big difference between playing a life and death game twice as opposed to playing it once. Sacramento is tied with Golden State right now. And there is a reasonable shot that the Warriors, actually they're tied with the Lakers too, but the tiebreakers for the Lakers are so bad that it's going to be hard for them to even to get to the 8. But look, Sacramento's a dog tonight. They're 5-point underdogs. Golden State plays New Orleans tonight as a 4.5-point favorite in what is a very bizarre spot all the way around for everyone involved. Those are two interesting games out west. By the way, Lakers are 16 against the Grizzlies, if anyone's interested tonight in that.
So should be noted, it is pretty impressive with this Western Conference. I mean, you just mentioned Sacramento, Golden State, and Lakers all tied down there. They're all 45 and 35.
Yeah, all there.
And sitting right there. So you're right. We got some really good games here. The Suns and the Kings have already played each other 4 times, and the Kings have covered in all 4. Now you're getting points with them at home. You mentioned kind of do or die back-to-back nights, but I like the points here with Sacramento and hanging in there, especially because we've seen the Suns and how inconsistent they have been, especially this week.
So just, this Warriors-Pelicans game is one of the more interesting games on the card tonight because of the reasons that I brought up. Golden State is locked into a play-in berth. They have the tiebreaker on the Lakers. Sacramento, as we just mentioned, is an underdog tonight at home against Phoenix. Chalk prevails by the numbers here. Golden State's going to end up in the 8, which is obviously a huge difference where you're playing. You obviously, if you win the 7-8 game, you don't even have to worry about it. You go right in and get the 7 seed. Don't worry about it. It's a totally different circumstance. But I just wonder, and this is, again, if you want to bet the Lakers to win the West or win the title, this is what I would caution you on here. Having to play back-to-back win-or-go-home games is a different sort of stress than what even the 7-8 game ends up being, or even the team that ends up in the 7-8, the loser of the 7-8. It is very hard to play, and even though it's only 2 extra games, very hard to play 2 extra high-stress games and then go into a series where the Lakers, let's say the Lakers get the 8 seed, okay, coming from either the 10 or the 9, all right? All right, you play 2 high-stress games, your reward is Denver.
Right.
Good luck, especially going to elevation for those first 2 games, and on top of it, playing a team that has just owned them over the last year plus. That would be, again, I wouldn't touch any of these teams that are in these play-in scenarios. There's just too many flaws with all these on potential futures. But if you want the Lakers, if you want Golden State, if you want Sacramento even, which I don't know why anyone would want that, and I would throw Phoenix in there as well, I wouldn't bother.
Beware.
Buyer beware on any of those teams currently in the play-in scenario in the West.
I completely agree, especially when we've seen these other teams look so good and playing so good. The Nuggets, Dallas is playing really good. The Clippers, a little inconsistent, but we've seen the best of them throughout the season. So you never know what you're going to get from them in a series. So I agree. I don't think it's really worth taking a shot on any of those lower 7 through 10 teams.
If we look at the West as a whole right now, again, New Orleans could fall into that play-in mix, as we know. A Phoenix win tonight and a New Orleans loss tonight would put, just to double check, would put the Phoenix Suns into that 6 slot, which would then put Phoenix into a scenario where, all right, win the final game of the regular season in Minnesota. Good luck, potentially, if Minnesota's invested in that game. Again, it's a lot of seeding still jockeying there, and the West is still around. But if you're looking at futures, I'll just go back to what I said at the beginning. Now that the Denver Nuggets have the number 1 seed likely in their grasp, going to be two games where they're gigantic favorites to end the regular season. They're 12 tonight in San Antonio before they once again, to end the season, end up with the Memphis Grizzlies on Sunday. It is a very, very tough sell to bet anyone but the Denver Nuggets to come out of the West at this point. The only team I would even remotely consider, and this is solely price-based, would be Minnesota. That would be the only other team I'd even remotely consider.
What price are you seeing?
9-1, 10-1 on Minnesota. That'd be the only other team I'd even remotely consider. Now, the tricky part with that is going to be, if they draw Phoenix in round 1, and this goes back to our friend Jeff Fogel said this. Rob Misch did this with UConn in the NCAA tournament to great success.
Yes.
The rollover pricing is something that you would look at potentially in Minnesota, because if they end up playing, let's say they end up playing Phoenix in round 1, okay? That's probably a coin flip. Probably minus 115 Minnesota, right? I think they'd be the smallest of favorites in that series.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right. I think they should be bigger, but I think they'd be close to a flip. Round 2 against OKC, that's all home court dependent. If OKC ends up with home floor, OKC's favored in that series.
Absolutely.
You know Minnesota's going to be a dog against Denver, and they'd probably be a dog against Boston. So that would, not probably, they would be a dog against Boston, and a significant one at that. So you'd probably be better off looking at the rollover in that scenario, but still, that is the one price where, all right, if they end up with New Orleans, they'll be favored against New Orleans. They'll be favored against Sacramento. But Minnesota seems to be the only one I'd even remotely consider on that.
I would say the Mavs are a little enticing here because of the way that they are playing, and you do have Luka, who can actually match up. So I think, and how him and Kyrie are playing right now, getting hot at the right time going into the playoffs. I haven't looked at their odds, though, so I'm not sure what number you're seeing on the Dallas Mavericks.
Dallas right now is actually higher than Minnesota, 11-1 in most shops, some 12, some 10 range, as always. I don't know. Dallas, I just don't trust. I don't fully trust them.
I agree.
But, boy, the Clipper Maverick round 1, where you have two teams, and it's so weird with Kawhi there, who is a guy you should trust. But the Clippers just, we know the history with the Clippers. We know what it is. They find ways to lose. It is very difficult to go ahead and be like, yeah, I want the Clippers. I would definitely not bet the Clippers, who are currently the second favorites in the Western Conference. All right, go ahead. Give me them as the 4 seed as a big dog against Denver. All right, fine. The Nuggets are going to beat them in a 7-game series if it comes to pass.
Well, it's really James Harden that has a lot to prove in coming down to these playoffs, right? Because we know his reputation when it gets to the playoffs. So we'll see how he does now with Paul George and Kawhi there. So,
all right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll look at some baseball today and a little bit of macro as well. Dan Szymborski should be joining us shortly as well when we get back. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.
From the South Point Studio, the perfect blend of sports.
But I think the Niners are going to wear them down. Detroit Pistons lost their 36 games.
Comedy.
See over-under on that relationship lasting. I'm going to put mayo in the coffee.
Yes. I am beautiful. And a whole lot of Pittsburgh.
In Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. Yeah. Pittsburgh.
Join Ryan McCormick.
That's at least 2 picks outside of our own in the first round next year. Oreo.
And host Frank Nicotero.
When I look at the clock, I go, ah! Ah!
Oh!
Watch Punchlines live at noon every weekday.
Once you've satisfied your hunger, get ready for more of the hottest casino games in Vegas. Our 24-hour, 30-table non-smoking poker room proudly hosts all the most popular poker games with a variety of betting limits. Visit the poker room for a schedule of daily tournaments. Whether you're going to hold 'em or fold 'em, the best place for poker is at South Point Casino. You'll notice that our craps tables are usually the loudest in the casino. If you've never played, join one of our free craps lessons to find out what makes this game so exciting. Check with the craps dealer for schedules and give it a roll. Bingo is also an exciting way to spend your time. We offer 7 sessions of bingo every day. Bingo! And each session includes a cash ball jackpot, 12 bingo games, a progressive double action game, and a $10,000 bonus coverall. Electronic units are available. If you haven't played bingo with us, give it a try today. Guests can also get in on the action at our one-of-a-kind race and sports books. 2 separate rooms designed to maximize your experience and comfort. Our sports book, with over 400 seats, puts you right in the middle of the action, 24 hours a day. South Point offers all the types of entertainment you'd expect at a first-class Las Vegas resort. Did you know our 400-seat showroom is one of Las Vegas's top destinations for live entertainment? Enjoy live performances by classic Vegas entertainers, bands, and today's hottest comedians, plus a rockin' dance floor. You can also enjoy live entertainment at the Grandview Lounge, where you'll feel all the vibes of old Las Vegas. Enjoy the music, and if you love to laugh, don't miss The Dirty at 12:30, our very own free comedy show, every Friday night at 12:30 a.m. in the Grandview Lounge. The Dirty is 100% free, so arrive early. Go to southpointcasino.com or call the box office at 77136 for today's performances at the showroom and the Grandview Lounge. When you're ready for your favorite cocktail, stop in and unwind at one of our 7 specialty lounges. There's a bar around every corner, because you're in Vegas, baby. South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book, South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles, Alex White alongside. We'll do some cross promotion real quick because Ryan McCormick is here as he usually is at this time. You can see him, Frank Nicotero, on Punchlines at noon, and the White family taking over the airwaves today because Kenny White will be with Frank.
Yes, he will.
You will be. You and I will be way out of here by then.
Yes, I will be out of here. I will be watching the Masters until I have to show up for the Aviators game at the Las Vegas ballpark. So that's my plan. But it's really shocking. Ryan got here normal time, but Frank's not here yet. He's usually always here by now, getting ready for his show.
I was just looking at McCormick to just get the silent reaction. Frank, by the way. Real quick, because I did Thursday with Frank. You'll be with Frank still on Wednesdays.
Yes, I will.
Moving forward, Frank yesterday.
Ryan's laughing now.
Well, so Frank moved recently. Okay, moved to a different section of town. All right. So his commute, I'm not going to say exactly where he lives, but his commute entails getting on 215 West towards Summerlin, technically, for a very short period of time before getting on to 15 South to get here. Okay, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And what was that? What did I say? Yeah, I-15 South. Thank you. 15 South, of course, towards Los Angeles. Frank got on 15 North trying to get here yesterday, which he blamed on what did he blame? He blamed it on the fact that he answered a phone call and he lost the GPS. I don't know.
Listen, that can be very tricky. I mean, that takes some time to get used to. I know it's pretty obvious that you're going towards the Strip, but you have to wait one more exit and then it makes a nice loop to go south.
I will say though,
that is tricky.
We are at the South Point. The South Point.
And I will say that wasn't Frank works very hard prepping for the show, just not here in studio. And this would be very early to show up.
Is he awake?
Ready, but I was just teasing.
He's awake.
Yeah.
Right,
so he's prepping
for Frank.
At home. Yes.
Good for Frank. Get ready for that at noon. All right. Hockey. Last night, just throwing this out there as our daily standings update on the hodgepodge mess that is the Eastern Conference playoff race. The current 8th seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs somehow are the Pittsburgh Penguins, who get it done last night.
Thanks to help from Washington losing to Buffalo.
Yes, Washington loses. Pittsburgh wins in a wild game. Goes OT, wins 6-5.
That's right.
Should have just bet that thing over. That seemed like a good over. I know you did, but I should have followed you on that.
I did, but very small because I was nervous and I said it might, defense, playoff hockey, but no.
So the East standings as of now, just so we're aware, the only game involving an Eastern Conference team tonight is Carolina in St. Louis, where Carolina has at least been given an opportunity to get within a point of New York, the Rangers, that is, to get that number one overall seed in the East, with the Rangers losing at home inexplicably in ugly fashion to Philly last night. So Carolina tonight against St. Louis, is that price right? They are huge favorites in St. Louis tonight. Over $2 on the road. Blues still technically have something to play for. Would need a lot of help, but they could still catch the Knights for the 8th seed in the West, Alex.
Carolina is one of the best teams in the league.
Oh,
right
I know
now.
they are.
And they are rated there, and that is based off of their number. And the Blues have been very, very inconsistent, so their number has moved up and down. So I didn't make it quite that high, but I do think that's pretty good. I like under in this game. I do think it'll be a tighter game, and these two both trend to the under. The Canes are 46-31 to the under on the season, 4-0 in their last 4 games. And the Blues are 40-32 on the season. So I think 6 is a little high. I probably would have made it 5.5 myself. So I think we're getting some value there with the under in this one.
All right. The other games tonight, Calgary, we can avoid Calgary and Anaheim, right?
Yes.
Not just 2 teams out there to have some fun tonight in Anaheim, right?
Honestly, and I kind of like that over as well.
Yeah, why not? Happy action fun time, as our friend Wes Reynolds would say.
And I made it 6.45, so I think you're getting a little value there, unless these two do, match up well defensively here and stuff. But I think over is the play in that one.
So just looking at the other games on the card, Nashville really does not have a ton to play for. It would take a lot for them to fall out of the 7 at this point. In the West, they take on the Blackhawks, who we know are awful. Actually, looks like Chicago's getting bet a little bit in the market. They are minus 250 on Nashville, down to minus 230 now. So the Hawks are now sub $2. That just moved legitimately 3 minutes ago. So very, very recent action here on the Blackhawks, down to a plus 195 on that one. And then the other 2 games tonight, and Alex, if you have a play on any of the 3, after we go through these, we can go ahead on them. Edmonton, huge favorites against Arizona. No shock there. Minus 280 behind us. Total 6.5. And in Vegas, Knights need a win to really just stabilize the ship and really put everything to rest here for the Western Conference playoff picture. $1.70 tonight at T-Mobile against Minnesota. Total of 6 for that one.
Yeah, I would lean to the Knights getting it done here, especially because this Wild team has been very inconsistent too. And I mean, they've been very disappointing this year. They should be in the playoffs in this conference. So definitely look to the Knights here. I do like the under in the Predators Blackhawks game as well, but seems like every time I give out a play with Ryan McCormick or Frank Nicotero here, either on the Blackhawks or the Pittsburgh Penguins, it loses. So Ryan's already in the building. We're gonna go away from that one because on Wednesday I had Blues Blackhawks under 6 and 4 goals in the first period. The Blues. So, but I do lean to the under. I made this one 5.4. So value there under that 6.
It is a weekend ahead. I'll just throw this up there real quick, where Islanders Rangers on Saturday is a huge game, obviously, in the Eastern Conference playoff picture. Pittsburgh plays Boston. I mean, there's a lot of these games on Saturday. We'll break them all down tomorrow. Absolutely. When we get the show rolling again. We're at 9. We've been at 8:30 all basketball season long. We're at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning in the new time slot, Tuesday through Saturday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Throughout the whole summer before football season comes back in droves, as always, in the fall. Just looking at the baseball card real quick here, and we'll get some more at the end of the show here. Dan Szymborski is going to join us in a few moments as well to give his thoughts on the first week plus. Just looking at tonight, Alex, I'll give you the floor. Anything stand out to you on this baseball card tonight? Because I do have one thing that I am looking at tonight on the baseball card, and it is in Baltimore, if that interests you.
All right, let's hear it. Honestly, I was doing more NHL and NBA.
Right.
So
I like the O's.
Love to hear your
I like the
MLB.
O's tonight. I know Freddie Peralta has looked really good in the early going. Tyrell Wells up and down to begin this season for the Baltimore Orioles. I would look at -105 on the O's right now. It is a flip in that one as we look at the Orioles for this one right now. All right. You know, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, hopefully at Dan Szymborski, we'll have some baseball talk when we get back on the other side. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside. Or maybe you're in the mood for seafood. Big Sur Oyster Bar has fresh seafood prepared right before your eyes. Savor freshly shucked oysters, crab legs jambalaya, shrimp and lobster. Beers on tap and a selection of fine wines are perfect to pair with your seafood favorite. Whether lunch or dinner, you'll love this fun atmosphere, located just off the casino floor. Ready to shake things up? Step back in time and treat yourself to one of the oldest restaurant chains in the country. Steak and Shake, famous for original mouth-watering steak burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes in a variety of flavors. For some old-fashioned fun, try Steak and Shake.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book, South Point Studio. One last segment for good folks at home here today, and we've been working to get this guy. We finally got the tech right. Our guy Dan Szymborski with us right now, Fangraphs, ESPN, the creator of Zips, an all-around very comical human being. Our good friend Dan Szymborski with us right now. Dan, a pleasure. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Jeff. It's been a while since we got to talk.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to talk with you. By the way, D Szymborski on Twitter. I just have to put the PSA out there. If you are alarmed by AI photos, maybe not the account for you, but some great baseball content as well from our guy Dan. I personally love the craziness that comes on your feed, so I am a fan, as you know, in a big way. But Dan, we're 2 weeks in here, and I just have to ask you right out of the gate, because everyone's talking about it, the pitching injuries. Of course, if they've been bigger names, I think, than people are used to seeing this early in the season, so it's garnered some attention. Do you think this is this the new norm? Is this more of just the scenario, hey, this is like normal, the rate of injury, but the names are bigger? Or is it because we have more eyeballs on baseball right now, so people are actually noticing this?
It's complex for a few reasons. One, it is partially, I believe, that it has hit the bigger names because there are always a lot of injured pitchers. The record for Tommy John surgeries in a year are still like the years 2010 to 2012, around 2013. There were some years that had the most, even more than the last few years. And that was before, velocity went up about 2 miles per hour per picture. So I think it's a complex issue. And when you look way back, like the 90s and 80s, I think one of the reasons you see a lot more Tommy John surgeries now is because it's less dramatic a surgery. Players come back from Tommy John surgery most of the time these days. And I think that a lot of times where a picture, say in 1985, would just kind of fade out with mysterious arm problems, now I think you will have the Tommy John surgery. So it's concerning, but I don't know if there's one proximate cause, and I don't really know how you would resolve that other than us somehow evolving to have stronger elbows.
Which is very tough here. Dan, I want to ask you, kind of related to the same thing. When the baseball season started, we were seeing so many overs, and typically we're used to the pitchers kind of being ahead of the hitters coming out of the spring. But now, I mean, it's evened out a little bit. But what do you think the reasoning is for seeing all those overs right out of the gate?
I think one of the complex problems is you never really know these days what baseball is being used in games at any point. So April offense has been a little higher than it is normal, because normally that's the slowest month. But this year, runs per game are at like a little over 4.5 per team per game. It was 4.6 last year, and so if the trends hold up, we'll see offense continue to peak. But again, with the mystery baseballs, which has become a yearly issue, who knows? I was actually a little surprised that offense wasn't lower this April, simply because pitchers are used to the clock, which they weren't last year at this time to the same degree.
Dan, just looking at the early goings here in baseball, I want to start with the positive stories. The Kansas City Royals, who I know you've had your battles with the fan base, but that they look like a legitimately good baseball team so far. It's 13 games. I understand it's a very small sample size, 149 to go for them. But look, the early returns for this offseason where they went out, made a few small moves that seemed impactful, seemingly has worked so far for Kansas City. Do you think this is a mirage for them? Or do you think this is a team that in a weak division has a legitimate shot to win it?
Well, just banking those wins right now, I mean, it's a pretty big deal. If you expected them to be, say, 6 and 7 this year, they're 3 games up. And that actually can matter in the AL Central and the NL Central. It's just these are weaker divisions. But when you talk about how good they are, I'm still kind of skeptical. Individual players, I think it's promising. Like Bobby Witt Jr. may have taken another step forward, which would not be surprising. I mean, he's 24 this year. You look at someone like Cole Reagans, he's healthy and pitching well. I'm pretty confident that what he's showing is what he can do. So when you talk about players like that, I'm not skeptical. But when you say, Brady Singer is an ace starter or Nelson Velasquez is the new coming of Jose Bautista, I'm a little more skeptical about those things.
I want to ask you about the New York Yankees then and how you feel about them. A lot of people were worried about them and their pitching rotation coming into the season, but they're 10-3. How do you think they hold up throughout the season?
I'm slightly annoyed by them playing so well because I'm an Orioles fan, so I hate to be nice to the Yankees. But there was too much skepticism about them coming into the season. And I think that usually happens after a team has a real downturn. People always will overrate teams when things are going well and underrate them when things don't. You see that with the Yankees, I think with the Padres, I think with the Cardinals to an extent. And one of the questions was Carlos Rodon's health. He could still get injured, and there are some worrying things about his peripherals. He's not striking out guys, he's walking guys. But he's healthy and not getting killed like he was last year. And that's a plus for the Yankees. And they're doing this without Aaron Judge really being a big part of it. He only has 2 home runs. He's still below the Mendoza line. His OPS is like under 750 right now. So I think the Yankees are a dangerous team, and people tended to underrate them. And it's weird thinking of the Yankees as being underrated.
Juan Soto's pretty good at this baseball thing, Dan. That's my big takeaway from the first 2 weeks of Yankee baseball this year. Moving to the AL West, mediocre start for the whole division. Texas in first place at 7-6. Houston I know Hunter Brown had a historically bad game yesterday, but even without that, it has been a rough go for the Stros to begin the year. What do you make of that division at the early goings with everyone looking pretty average so far?
Yeah, Hunter Brown makes me sad. I picked him as one of my breakouts this year. So that start was kind of a brutal experience. The Astros were a mild favorite going into the season. I know a lot of Rangers fans were upset by that, but the Rangers did lose a lot of pitching since last season. But these games count, and I think people don't always take what happens in April too seriously, as they should, because these are wins you don't necessarily get back later. You give the Rangers a 3 or 4 game head start, and all of a sudden I think the race is much closer to a coin flip than it was at the start of the season. I know when I look at the Zips playoff probabilities, the Astros were the divisional favorite coming into the season, but now they're down to about 37% to win the division, which is down significantly. At the start of the season, you're talking over a coin flip they were. So Astros fans should be concerned, not so concerned that the team should panic and do any moves in desperation, but they do need to turn this around fairly quickly before they get too deep a hole.
I want to move to the NL West because the Dodgers are looking like the team everybody expected them to be. But, I mean, San Diego, not too bad, 7-8. Arizona, 6-7. And San Francisco, I know a lot of people still have high hopes for them, even though they started slow, 5-8 here. Of course, we have the Rockies in there, too. But out of those top 3, do any of them have a chance to actually win this division and steal it from the Dodgers long term?
I don't think so. I mean, I thought it was a long shot coming into the season when they start off tied and 162 games to go. Now they start off behind with 147 or so games to go. And that's much worse. I think the Dodgers are one of the most creative teams in the majors. I know a lot of it is made about the money, and it should be. They spend a lot of money on players. But they're very clever in the things they do. They find players and revive them out of nowhere. I think of Andrew Heaney a few years ago. They got that year out of Jason Hayward last year. James Paxton has been actually healthy for 2 starts, which is a miracle. I think it's going to be really hard to catch the Dodgers because this is a team that will, if they sense a big hole in the team, they will trade aggressively and bring in someone. You saw that some years ago when they picked up Max Scherzer and Trey Turner in the same deal. So I think the Dodgers are probably they should feel better, I think, than any team currently in first place.
Dan, 2 more before we let you go. Do you have concerns about Atlanta's pitching throughout the year, especially with Strider down for an extended period of time now?
I do. Strider was like the guy they couldn't lose. Now it's still to see just how bad this is going to be long term. But without Strider, I mean, you're taking an ace. And any team you take away their ace, their number 1 starter, they're going to suffer from it. Now I think the Braves had some slack, but now it's more of a patch job than it was before. Now they do need Chris Sale to stay healthy. Now they do need Charlie Morton not to age. These things have become more crucial, especially because, I mean, Max Fried did not look good when he's pitched. So they do have some concerns, but I still think they're the favorite in the division.
Now, them and Philly, the Phillies, I don't think have played particularly great, and they're only 1 game behind, but they've also played 2 extra games so far in the early goings of the season. All right, Dan, before we let you go, obviously a whole weekend of baseball ahead. What series are you looking at this weekend and say, hey, that's the one I want to look at and see how these teams match up against each other and maybe some other analytical reasons that pop up for you?
Well, at the risk of bias, I do want to see the Orioles and the Brewers this weekend. Mm-hmm. The Brewers, this is a big weekend for them because they lost Corbin Burns coming into the season, but right now they stand at 8-3. They're tied with the Pirates, and they're ahead in winning percentage. I think if you could take two of three from the Orioles, you take 3 of 3, all of a sudden you're banking wins that can really matter down the stretch in a weak division. And from the Orioles' point of view, you don't want to give the Yankees a significant cushion. I think that they could get after Peralta because the Orioles do have some young, interesting left-handed bats. You have Gunnar Henderson, who is one of my favorite players. You have I'm waiting for we're gonna have the big Jackson Holiday game. That first hit's coming, I'm sure. Colton Cowser is one of the hottest players in baseball. So I think that should be a really fun series to watch.
He's Dan Szymborski on the tweets at D Szymborski, Fangraphs, creator of Zips. You can find his work at ESPN as well. Dan, pleasure as always. Thanks for being with us today.
Always fun, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dan.
Dan Szymborski, everyone. All right, that's I'm going to take these off for the last few seconds. That's our show today. Tomorrow, 9 a.m.
Back at 9.
Have back at it. Full hockey card.
Yes.
Legitimate full hockey card, unlike this ridiculous 5-game card we have tonight. NBA, we'll have a clearer picture of what that Eastern Conference looks like and a full card of baseball. And also, you may have more in-play Masters bets for us tomorrow morning.
I hope not.
You
Jeff.
hope not?
I hope I'm done and I have my final bets.
All right. There, I nip that one right in the bud right away on that. Punchlines coming up in 2 hours. Frank Nicotero, Ryan McCormick, Kenny White on the show today. So that's coming at noon to close out your week on Punchlines. We'll see you tomorrow, 9 a.m. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.